Have you ever felt a moment of sudden fog, a strange pause in your thoughts, or a brief wave of confusion that disappears as quickly as it arrives? Many of my patients tell me they feel these things from time to time, yet they simply move on with their day. One of them once shared that she kept blaming these moments on just getting older, even though something inside her told her it didn't feel quite right. And I want you to imagine this for a moment. Picture the brain sending tiny warnings, quiet signals that something is happening beneath the surface, long before a major problem ever appears. These are often the early moments of what we call silent strokes. They are far more common after age 60 than most people realize, yet they rarely look dramatic. There is no sudden collapse, no obvious paralysis, no frightening emergency scene. Instead, silent strokes show up as brief confusion, sudden fatigue, a moment of blurred vision, or a strange heaviness in a hand or leg. They last only seconds or minutes and then disappear, which is why so many seniors brush them aside. But inside the brain, tiny areas of tissue lose blood flow for just long enough to leave a mark. Silent strokes accumulate quietly, and over time, they can affect memory, balance, emotional stability, and even personality. And it is not your fault if you have missed the warning signs. Most older adults do. As we age, arteries stiffen, circulation slows, inflammation increases, and the brain becomes much more sensitive to small drops in oxygen. Even a brief interruption can create a bigger impact than you might expect. Here is the truth most seniors never hear. Research shows that many older adults experience silent strokes months or even years before a major one occurs. And because they happen quietly, they are often unnoticed until memory changes, mood shifts, or balance issues appear. In today's video, I will help you understand what silent strokes really look like, the subtle signs that most seniors overlook, the nighttime and morning triggers that increase risk, the lifestyle habits that quietly make things worse, and the simple routines and supplements that can help protect your brain. I will also share real stories from patients whose lives changed once they understood these signals. If you want to stay independent, sharp, and confident, this may be one of the most important conversations we share. And if you find this helpful, I invite you to subscribe to Senior Health Daily so we can continue this journey together. Understanding the science of silent strokes. When we talk about strokes, most people picture dramatic symptoms, a drooping face, slurred speech, or sudden paralysis. But the silent strokes I see so often in my older patients work very differently. They slip quietly through the night or early morning hours, stealing tiny pieces of brain function without announcing themselves. The science behind this is more human and more relatable than you might expect. Silent strokes occur when a small clot or blockage interrupts blood flow to a tiny portion of the brain for just a few seconds or minutes. That brief moment is enough for a cluster of brain cells to lose oxygen and shut down. The person does not feel pain, they do not collapse, and no one around them notices anything unusual. Yet inside the brain, a small injury has just taken place. As we age, these events become more likely because the infrastructure of the vessels changes. After 60, arteries stiffen like old garden hoses left in the sun. Blood doesn't move as smoothly or flexibly as it once did. Inflammation rises quietly, narrowing blood vessels even more. The brain, which depends on constant oxygen, becomes more sensitive to even tiny dips in blood flow. For seniors with conditions like high blood pressure, diabetes, atrial fibrillation, or sleep apnea, the risk rises significantly. These conditions create an environment where clots form more easily or oxygen fluctuates more dramatically during sleep or periods of inactivity. I once cared for a patient named Harold, a retired teacher in his late 70s. For months, he kept telling me he felt foggy for just a minute or two at random times. It wasn't enough to alarm him, just enough to make him pause. One day, he came in worried because those foggy episodes had become more frequent. An MRI revealed multiple silent strokes that had accumulated over the years. He had never experienced a dramatic event, yet his brain had been quietly asking for help. Harold's story reflects what so many seniors experience. Silent strokes are not dramatic, but they are powerful. They don't shout, they whisper. And learning to understand that whisper is what protects independence, memory, balance, and emotional stability. Subtle symptoms seniors overlook daily. One of the most heartbreaking patterns I see in my work is how often seniors overlook the very signs their brain is trying to show them. Silent strokes rarely come with dramatic alarms. Instead, they appear like small glitches, brief interruptions in normal functioning that last seconds and then fade as if nothing happened. Because they pass quickly, most older adults brush them aside. But these small moments often carry the biggest warnings. Many of my patients describe a strange, off sensation that comes and goes. They might pause in the middle of a sentence because their mind suddenly feels slower, or they momentarily lose a word they've spoken thousands of times. They often tell me they feel embarrassed or assume it's normal aging, so they keep quiet. What they don't realize is that temporary trouble speaking, mixing up familiar words, or losing train of thought can be the result of tiny strokes disrupting language pathways in the brain. Other seniors tell me about a brief heaviness in an arm or leg that lasts only a few seconds. They shake it off, perhaps rub the limb, and move on. But one-sided heaviness, even if mild, often means a tiny clot interrupted blood flow to the part of the brain that controls movement. The same is true for temporary vision changes, moments when the world looks a little blurry or doubled before returning to normal. To the brain, these are not coincidences or minor annoyances. They are messages. I recall a woman named Sandra, a vibrant grandmother who loved gardening. She came to see me because she noticed she had been bumping into things on her right side more often. Nothing severe, just enough to frustrate her. She joked about being clumsy. But as she spoke, I recognized the pattern. An MRI later confirmed several silent strokes affecting her spatial awareness. She had been living with these signs for months without realizing their meaning. Even emotional changes can signal silent strokes. Sudden irritability, unexpected sadness, or moments of impatience that feel unlike your usual personality can be the result of tiny injuries in the emotional regulation centers of the brain. Seniors often blame mood shifts on stress, family issues, or poor sleep, but the brain rarely sends emotional signals without reason. If there's one message I wish every senior could hear, it's this. If something feels unusual for your body, even for a few seconds, it deserves attention. Silent strokes are quiet, but they are not invisible. The body always speaks. We just have to learn to listen. Nighttime warning signals.
Action!
Nighttime is one of the most vulnerable windows for silent strokes, and many seniors never realize how much their bodies are trying to communicate while they sleep. The quiet of the night often reveals things we overlook during the day. When the world slows down, the brain's signals become clearer, if we know how to recognize them. Some of my patients describe waking up in the middle of the night feeling strangely confused, as if they've opened their eyes but their mind hasn't caught up yet. They sit on the edge of the bed for a moment, waiting for clarity to return. Many assume it's simply grogginess, but confusion right after waking can indicate that blood flow to certain areas of the brain dipped during sleep. Others tell me about nighttime numbness or tingling that runs through one arm or one side of the face. They shake their hand, move their jaw, adjust their pillow, and try to go back to sleep. What they don't realize is that one-sided symptoms rarely come from pillows or awkward positions. They come from the brain. Several seniors describe a curious pressure behind the eyes, or a sensation like wearing an invisible helmet. Light, strange, tightening. This kind of nighttime head pressure often reflects changes in blood flow or oxygen levels during sleep. It is subtle but meaningful. Nighttime dizziness is another signal that often gets dismissed. Seniors may swing their legs out of bed, stand too quickly, and feel the room tilt just slightly. They blame it on standing up too fast or being tired, but dizziness combined with nighttime awakenings can be one of the earliest warnings of poor oxygen supply to the brain. And then there are the moments that feel like nothing at all, yet everything at once. Waking up irritable, disoriented, overly emotional, or unusually anxious. These emotional flashes can be neurological, not psychological. When the brain struggles to get the oxygen it needs, even for a few minutes, emotions can shift abruptly. The nighttime environment itself plays a role. Dehydration after hours without water thickens the blood. Sleep apnea, or shallow breathing, lowers oxygen levels even further. Long periods of stillness reduce circulation. All of this creates the perfect storm for silent strokes to occur while seniors are completely unaware. I once cared for a man named Robert, who told me he often woke with a strange tingling down his left arm, but brushed it off as sleeping in a funny position. When the tingling became more frequent, he finally mentioned it during an appointment. Further testing revealed that he had experienced several silent strokes during the night. His body had been speaking to him for months. Nighttime symptoms are the whispers before the shout. They are gentle but urgent reminders that the brain is working harder than it should. When seniors understand these signals, they gain the power to protect themselves before a major event occurs. Morning red flags. Morning should be a gentle beginning, a moment where the body slowly reconnects with the world after hours of rest. But for many seniors, the morning is when the brain quietly reveals its most important warnings. These red flags are often so subtle that they get overlooked, yet they carry powerful meaning. Some seniors tell me they wake up with a sudden wave of dizziness, the kind that makes them pause before standing. They hold on to the nightstand, breathe slowly, and assume it's just getting older. But morning dizziness is often more than age. It can signal overnight changes in blood flow, dehydration, or tiny disruptions in the brain's oxygen supply. Others describe a strange pressure in the head shortly after opening their eyes. They rub their forehead, blink a few times, and wait for it to pass. This kind of head pressure, especially when it happens repeatedly, can be one of the earliest signs that the brain's blood vessels struggled during the night. A surprising number of seniors quietly admit they sometimes have trouble finding words in the morning. They know exactly what they want to say, but the word feels stuck or delayed. It might happen while making breakfast or simply greeting a family member. Most brush it off as morning fog, but word-finding issues can be neurological. The brain is telling us it worked under stress overnight. There is also the gentle unsteadiness many older adults feel when they first start moving. They describe it as feeling off balance, wobbly, or just not myself yet. Instead of blaming it on a poor night's sleep, it's important to understand that the brain and inner ear are deeply sensitive to oxygen levels. Even a small interruption in circulation can make walking feel different. And then there is the fatigue that seems to arrive before the day even begins. Seniors often tell me, "I woke up tired." This isn't normal aging. When the body spends the night fighting low oxygen, shallow breathing, or blood pressure spikes, it leaves a deeper exhaustion, the kind that sleep doesn't fix. Morning is also the time when blood pressure tends to surge. The transition from lying down to standing activates the nervous system, sometimes too forcefully. For older adults with stiffened arteries, these sudden spikes can be dangerous. Many silent strokes happen during the early morning hours, long before seniors pour their first cup of coffee. I once had a patient, Linda, who would experience brief spells of confusion each morning. She laughed it off, telling me she simply wasn't a morning person anymore. But an MRI revealed that she had accumulated several silent strokes over the past years. Her mornings had been whispering warnings long before anything major happened. The truth is, the morning tells a story. It reveals what the body has been through overnight. When seniors learn the language of these subtle signs, they gain the power to intervene early, protect their independence, and change the course of their health. Lifestyle factors that quietly increase silent stroke risk. As we move deeper into understanding silent strokes, it becomes clear that these events rarely come out of nowhere. They grow silently from the rhythms of daily life, especially the small habits that seem harmless on the surface. What many seniors don't realize is that the body keeps score of every choice, every routine, every moment of stress or stillness. One of the most common hidden factors is long periods of sitting. Many older adults spend hours in the same chair, whether it's watching TV, reading, or simply trying to stay comfortable. Over time, this stillness slows circulation, allowing blood to pool in the legs and forcing the heart to work harder to push it back upward. When the brain receives too little oxygen during these long stretches, it becomes more vulnerable to small clots and sudden drops in blood flow. Another quiet contributor is the way we eat in the evening. High-sodium dinners, processed foods, or heavy late-night meals create a surge in blood pressure during the night. Seniors who wake up with a pounding head or a flushed face often chalk it up to bad sleep, but their circulatory system has been working overtime while they rested. The brain, especially after age 60, reacts strongly to these blood pressure swings. Chronic dehydration is another hidden danger. Many older adults naturally drink less water throughout the day because their thirst signals aren't as strong as they used to be. The result is thicker blood, drier vessels, and a higher risk of small clots forming. When dehydration continues for days or weeks, the brain struggles more than the person realizes. Emotional stress is also a powerful force many seniors underestimate. Loneliness, worry, unresolved tension, and even nighttime anxiety quietly raise inflammation and blood pressure. I have seen patients who seemed physically stable, but were quietly carrying emotional burdens that pushed their bodies into a vulnerable state. When stress becomes a daily companion, the brain begins to feel the weight of it. Sleep posture plays a larger role than most imagine. Seniors who sleep flat on their back often have reduced airway space, leading to light snoring, shallow breathing, or low oxygen through the night. Over time, these nighttime oxygen dips weaken the brain's resilience and increase silent stroke risk. Even pillows that tilt the head too far forward or cause neck compression can affect blood flow to the brain. Many older adults also underestimate the impact of loneliness and isolation on their physical health. When a person feels disconnected, their nervous system enters a long-term stress mode. This persistent emotional tension can increase inflammation, tighten blood vessels, and reduce the brain's ability to handle small circulatory disruptions. This is why seniors living alone often experience more fatigue, confusion, or emotional changes without realizing the connection. Finally, many seniors don't recognize how small lifestyle patterns layer on top of existing medical conditions. Someone with borderline high blood pressure who also sits for long hours, eats salty dinners, and rarely hydrates is unknowingly creating the perfect environment for silent strokes. These factors don't feel dramatic day to day, but over time, the brain absorbs the impact. The good news is that once seniors understand how these everyday habits influence the brain, they gain the ability to shift the story. Silent strokes are not just medical events, they are reflections of how the body is treated over time. With awareness and simple adjustments, the path forward can become gentler, safer, and far more empowering. Medical conditions that make silent strokes more likely. As we move from lifestyle habits into the deeper medical factors, I want to remind you of something important. Silent strokes don't happen because someone is careless or weak. They often grow from quieter conditions that develop slowly with age, conditions millions of seniors live with every day without fully realizing how powerfully they shape the brain's health. One of the strongest medical contributors is high blood pressure. Many older adults have lived with it for so long that it starts to feel ordinary, almost like background noise in their health routine. But every rise in pressure puts stress on delicate vessels deep inside the brain. Over months and years, these vessels become more fragile, making them more vulnerable to tiny blockages or microbleeds that never cause dramatic symptoms, yet slowly chip away at cognitive strength. Atrial fibrillation is another quiet factor. Many seniors experience occasional irregular heartbeats and dismiss them as anxiety or fatigue. But those irregular beats allow small clots to form in the heart. These clots can travel upward, blocking tiny brain vessels for a moment before dissolving, leaving behind a trail of microscopic damage. I've met patients who lived with these irregular rhythms for years without realizing how profoundly they affected their brain's future. Diabetes also plays a significant role. High blood sugar weakens blood vessels, thickens the blood, and makes inflammation more likely. Seniors with diabetes often describe episodes of fogginess or sudden exhaustion, unaware that their brain is reacting to fluctuating glucose levels that quietly reduce oxygen delivery. These small dips may seem harmless, but repeated over time, they create fertile ground for silent strokes. Cholesterol imbalances add another layer of risk. When cholesterol builds inside vessels, the narrowing reduces the brain's safety margin. Even a tiny clot can get stuck in a passage that used to be wide enough to carry it safely through. Many seniors think of cholesterol as a heart issue, but the brain depends just as heavily on clean, flexible blood vessels. Carotid artery narrowing is a condition many older adults never feel. These arteries, located on each side of the neck, deliver the majority of blood to the brain. When plaque gradually builds up, the blood flow becomes restricted long before symptoms appear. I remember a patient who simply thought he was slowing down with age. What he didn't know was that his brain had been receiving reduced blood flow for years, creating the perfect environment for a series of silent strokes. Sleep apnea also plays a powerful, often underestimated role. Seniors who snore, gasp, or wake frequently at night may be experiencing dozens of oxygen drops while they sleep. Each drop forces the brain to work harder to wake the body, and every one of those episodes increases strain on the blood vessels. Over time, this nightly stress creates small injuries that accumulate quietly. Chronic inflammation ties all these medical factors together. Inflammation from arthritis, obesity, autoimmune disorders, or long-term stress can subtly weaken the vascular system. It makes vessels more reactive, more sensitive, and more prone to the tiny blockages that cause silent strokes. Seniors who struggle with daily pain or long-standing medical conditions often don't realize how closely their inflammation is linked to cognitive health. The most important thing to remember is that these medical conditions do not define someone's destiny. They simply indicate that the brain needs gentler care, steadier routines, and earlier attention. When seniors understand how these conditions interact, they gain the power to prevent further harm and protect the independence they value so deeply. Supplements that support brain and vascular health. As we move into this next part, I want to speak gently and honestly. Supplements are not magic, and they are never meant to replace proper medical care. But when used wisely, especially for older adults, they can become powerful tools that support the brain, protect blood vessels, and reduce the quiet risks that lead to silent strokes. Over the years, I've seen many of my patients experience meaningful improvements simply by giving their brain the nutrients it had been missing for far too long. One of the most important nutrients is omega-3. Many seniors don't consume enough of it, and yet the brain relies heavily on omega-3 to keep blood flowing smoothly and reduce inflammation. I remember one gentleman who struggled with foggy mornings and sudden dips in focus. After adding a high-quality omega-3 to his routine, the change wasn't dramatic overnight, but week by week, his clarity and steadiness began to return. His brain simply needed better fuel. Magnesium is another quiet hero. Most adults over 60 are deficient without knowing it. Magnesium helps calm the nervous system, stabilize blood pressure, and relax the walls of the blood vessels. One of my patients used to wake up at night with tingling in her hands and a feeling that her chest was tight. Her blood work revealed low magnesium, and once we corrected it, those nighttime symptoms almost disappeared. Her brain and her vessels were finally able to rest. Vitamin D3 paired with K2 is especially valuable for vascular health. Many seniors take vitamin D, but without K2, the calcium in the body may not go where it's truly needed. This partnership helps keep arteries flexible and reduces the stiffening that increases stroke risk. I've had older adults come to me with chronic fatigue or episodes of imbalance, only to discover that part of the issue was inadequate vitamin D levels. Supporting this pathway gave them renewed energy and stability. CoQ10 plays a critical role too, particularly for seniors on statins or those who experience frequent fatigue. CoQ10 helps the heart generate energy and supports healthy circulation. When the heart pumps more efficiently, the brain receives the steady oxygen it depends on. One woman in her 70s told me she felt as if her brain woke up again after starting CoQ10 because her heart finally had the strength to keep up with her daily life. Turmeric or curcumin can also make a meaningful difference. Their anti-inflammatory properties help reduce the chronic inflammation that quietly damages blood vessels and raises stroke risk. Seniors who deal with arthritis or long-term pain often discover that reducing inflammation in the body also brings greater mental clarity, better circulation, and fewer foggy episodes. And finally, electrolytes may seem simple, but for seniors, they are essential. Overnight dehydration thickens the blood, increases morning stroke risk, and contributes to dizziness, confusion, and sluggish thinking. A small amount of electrolytes in the evening or early morning can help the brain receive more consistent hydration and oxygen. These supplements are not meant to overwhelm or complicate life. They're gentle supports, small acts of care that strengthen the brain's foundation and lower the silent risks that many older adults never even know they're living with. The key is consistency, partnership with your doctor, and listening to how your body responds. When seniors nourish their brain and vessels with the right building blocks, they often feel steadier, clearer, and more confident than they have in years. Senior-friendly habits to reduce silent stroke risk. As we move into this next part, I want you to imagine something simple. Picture your brain as a quiet town at night, lights glowing softly in every home. Those tiny homes represent the billions of cells that help you think, feel, remember, and stay balanced. Silent strokes are like brief power flickers in that town, moments when light disappears for just a few seconds. And the habits you choose each day help determine whether those lights stay steady or fade unexpectedly. What comforts me most, after decades of caring for older adults, is knowing how much power you still have. Even at 60, 70, or 80 years old, your brain responds beautifully to gentle, consistent habits. And many of these habits are simple enough to begin today. One of the most valuable is morning hydration. Seniors often wake up with thickened blood, making the brain work harder than it should. A small glass of water before you start moving can restore circulation and protect delicate vessels. I've watched countless patients reduce morning fog and dizziness just by hydrating before their first cup of coffee. Evening stretching is another quiet gift to your brain. Nothing complicated, just soft movements that loosen the neck, shoulders, and legs. These gentle stretches improve blood flow to the brain and help prevent the overnight stagnation that contributes to silent strokes. One of my patients, an 82-year-old woman, told me she hadn't realized how stiff her neck had become until she tried simple side-to-side stretches. Within days, her morning head pressure eased. Deep breathing is equally powerful. Many seniors take shallow breaths without realizing it. A few slow inhales in the evening or before getting out of bed can increase oxygen delivery and calm the nervous system. I once guided a man who struggled with sudden nighttime spells. When he practiced deep breathing daily, those episodes nearly vanished. Neck mobility exercises are especially helpful because the carotid arteries that deliver blood straight to the brain can become compressed by poor posture or stiffness. Gentle neck rotations, lifting the chin slightly, or relaxing tight shoulder muscles can open the pathway for smoother blood flow. Seniors often tell me they feel clearer and more grounded within days. Short walks sprinkled throughout the day can also make a tremendous difference. You don't need to power walk or push yourself, just regular movement to keep blood flowing. These simple steps protect the vessels, reduce inflammation, and stabilize blood pressure. Emotional well-being matters too. Light journaling, a few minutes of gratitude, or simply talking to someone you trust can lower cortisol, the stress hormone that increases stroke risk. Your brain is deeply connected to your emotions. When you care for your heart emotionally, your brain feels the impact physically. And in the evening, elevating your legs for a few minutes can help blood return to the heart more easily and reduce the pressure in your vessels. It's a small act with a surprisingly big impact for many older adults. What I want you to remember is this: none of these habits require drastic change. They're small, gentle steps, quiet ways to speak kindness to your brain. Every little thing you do helps steady your internal rhythm, keeps oxygen flowing, and protects the precious cells that hold your memories, your identity, and your independence. These are habits built on love, not fear, on care, not pressure, and they truly have the power to reshape your future health one day at a time. When silent symptoms become emergencies. As we come to this final part of the main content, I want to speak to you with the same sincerity I use when I sit across from a patient in my exam room. Silent strokes may be subtle, quiet, and easy to overlook, but there are moments when your body shifts from whispering to urgently calling for help. And recognizing those moments, calmly, clearly, without panic, is one of the greatest gifts you can give yourself. Let's talk about those signals. If you ever feel sudden weakness in your face, arm, or leg, especially on one side, your brain is trying to get your attention. Many seniors brush off these episodes, telling themselves they're tired or slept on their arm wrong. But weakness that appears suddenly and without an obvious cause is a sign you should never ignore. Another red flag is trouble speaking or understanding words, even for a few seconds. If your tongue feels heavy, your words slip out strangely, or you find yourself unable to comprehend a simple sentence, that is your brain waving a bright, urgent flag. One of my patients once described it as feeling like the world suddenly switched languages for a moment. A severe headache that strikes out of nowhere, different from your usual aches, can also indicate a stroke in progress. Seniors often think headaches are trivial, but when it's sudden, intense, or unlike anything you've had before, it deserves swift attention. And then there is vision loss or sudden blurriness, especially in one eye. Many silent strokes affect the areas of the brain responsible for vision. These episodes may last seconds or minutes, but they are warning signs that a major stroke could be forming. If you suddenly feel off balance, unable to stand steadily, or as if the room is spinning, pay attention. A stroke affecting the cerebellum, the part of the brain that controls coordination, often begins this way. Seniors frequently attribute this to dehydration or a bad night's sleep, but when balance changes abruptly, your brain is telling you to take action. One of the most important things I teach my older patients is this. These symptoms rarely appear for no reason, and they are never something to wait and see about. Getting help quickly isn't just about survival, it's about preserving your independence, your memory, and the life you cherish. The truth is, early action saves brain cells. It protects mobility. It preserves your speech, your balance, your confidence, and the joy you want to keep experiencing for years to come. So if any of these symptoms appear, suddenly, sharply, or without explanation, call emergency services. Not later, not tomorrow, now. You deserve to be protected. You deserve prompt care. And you deserve a future shaped by strength, not fear. Your brain has served you faithfully for decades. When it asks for help, respond with the urgency and compassion you would give someone you love. As we come to the end of this conversation, I want to leave you with something far more important than facts or medical explanations. I want to leave you with reassurance. Silent strokes are not punishments. They are not signs that your body is failing you. They are signals, quiet messages asking for attention and care. Your body is speaking to you gently, consistently, and with the intention of protecting you. And I want you to feel a sense of gratitude for the incredible work your brain has done for you. Think about it. Every memory you hold, every choice you've made, every person you've loved, every moment that shaped who you are today, your brain has carried all of it. For decades, it has worked tirelessly on your behalf. Caring for it now is not fear. It is respect. It is appreciation. It is a way of honoring the life you've lived and the life still ahead of you. I also want you to feel empowered. You're not powerless in this journey. You don't need huge, overwhelming changes to protect your brain. Small steps matter more than you can imagine. Drinking water in the morning, rising slowly, breathing deeply, moving gently, protecting your sleep. These simple actions strengthen your brain's resilience and shape the path of your future. And above all, I want you to feel hope. Even at 60, 70, 80, or beyond, your brain can heal, adapt, form new pathways, and grow stronger. Silent strokes do not define your future. Awareness gives you the power to rewrite it. So let me leave you with this. Your brain is still listening. Every small choice you make today protects your tomorrow. If you found comfort, clarity, or strength in this video, I invite you to subscribe to Senior Health Daily so we can continue this journey together, one caring step at a time.